When I was growing up, my handheld gaming experience was exclusively with the Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, basically just Nintendo. One of my younger siblings had a different experience though. In the 2000s, after a dinner at Cece's Pizza, we all spent some time in the very tiny arcade located inside the restaurant. And after about $8 spent on one of those stacker games, he won a PSP. I can't understate how cool it was at the time that he won a whole PSP from some scammy arcade machine for just $8. Honestly, I still think it's cool. But again, that was his experience. Me, I never had a PSP and I wasn't particularly interested in having one back then. I was pretty content already with my Game Boys, and as I entered high school, I wasn't very interested in video games in general for a while. Obviously that changed since, well, here we are. Since the start of the year, I've fully embraced retro gaming, and it's gone from just playing some of my favorite childhood games to playing ones I never experienced or finished back then, and I'm slowly building a modest retro collection. One of the newest additions to my collection? A PSP. But honestly, not because there are any PSP games I'm particularly interested in right now, but because of its emulation capabilities. I'm incredibly late to the party because even though I had no idea this was a thing until recently, people have been putting emulators on the PSP for years. And to me, there's something really cool about taking a handheld console like the PSP and finding new uses for it that weren't originally intended. So after learning about all this, I began the search for my first ever PSP in the big year of 2024. You can find them just about anywhere: Mercari, eBay, Etsy, Amazon, DK Oldies. But after a bit of browsing, I ultimately decided to go with a quote-unquote renewed PSP 2000 from Amazon. Not because the price was good at $150, because it wasn't, but with the renewed title, I was hoping it'd at least be in better condition than the cheaper options I was seeing elsewhere, and if there were any issues, Amazon has a pretty hassle-free return process in my experience, so I just went for it. A few days later, my PSP arrived. It's hard to see on the camera, but the screen is a bit scratched, though that's not really the biggest deal to me since it's nothing too insane. It's pretty minor and to be expected. And ultimately, if I ever want to replace the screen, it doesn't look like a super difficult process. There was a little bit of gunk stuck on the back, but it wasn't anything like disgusting or anything. It makes me wonder how thorough they were when cleaning it, but it's really not a big deal, it's very minor. This is where my PSP inexperience comes into play. When I turn on the PSP, it freezes for a bit at first at the menu. I'm having trouble finding out if this is normal, so maybe let me know in the comments if there's a fix for this or if it's just how it is. Generally speaking though, it seems to be in pretty good shape, so now I'm going to have some fun with it. I got a wrist strap and acrylic chow charm to decorate it a little bit. The wrist strap is from Amazon and the chow charm is from Etsy. I'll leave the links in the description in case anyone wants them. Honestly, the charm is really adorable and super high quality, so I'd definitely recommend it if you're into that kind of thing. I even realized I had this phone stand lying around that's perfect for it. I know, it's very pink. Next, it was time to install some custom firmware and get some emulators on this thing. The PSP was already updated to the software version I needed, 6.60, but I realized I forgot to buy the cable needed to do this, so we're back a few days later. I didn't go into this intending to make a tutorial video, though if that's something you'd be interested in, let me know. But I just thought it'd be cool to show off some of the games you can emulate on your PSP if you're as new to this as I am. I started with Mario 64, not my most favorite game, but I was curious. Even though I'd heard you could absolutely run it on the PSP, I was still surprised at just how well it did that. I didn't experience any lagging or performance issues at all, so I tried loading up another ROM I had already, Paper Mario 64. It did not like it. It was glitchy and laggy, and though I'm sure you could put up with that, I personally would sooner just play it on something else. Next was trying out Game Boy Advance games. I also tried putting Game Boy games on it, but even after trying a few different emulators, it just said corrupted data, so I'm not 100% sure what I messed up, but that's fine because there are plenty of awesome GBA games. I tried out Sonic Advance 2, Pokemon Emerald, and Summon Night Swordcraft Story, and all of them ran perfectly. And finally, though this is nothing special since the PSP has built-in emulation for the PS1, I still thought it was really cool to play Rayman and Spyro on a handheld since I'd never done it before. There are lots of other emulators you can put on a PSP, but these were the ones I decided to try out first. I'd say with the number of games I can put on here and for the sake of collecting, it was worth getting a PSP even in 2024. Worth $150? I could have definitely gone cheaper. For that price, I could have probably just gotten a more powerful retro handheld. But still, this is a really cool addition to my little collection, and I'll definitely get some use out of it. So if you like retro gaming and you can find a PSP for a good enough price, I'd say go for it. I know I've really just been doing retrospective videos so far, but since I've got such a strong interest in all things retro gaming and nostalgia in general, I thought it would be fun to do all kinds of videos, whether tech related or challenges or whatever I can come up with. So if this wasn't your cup of tea, I totally understand, and I'll definitely still do retrospectives. But if you're just generally interested in retro technology and gaming like me, I'll have all kinds of content that fits into that theme too. But yeah, thanks for watching, I'll see you next time.